Tracy, I'm sure I gave you $500,000. What on earth are you talking about? The Thanksgiving dining room was filled with the rich scent of spices, a turkey gleaming golden brown at the center of the table. I was thanking my Aunt Sandra for the bicycle she had supposedly given me as a gift. She stared at me with a deeply puzzled expression and replied, "I didn't give you any bicycle." At the moment she said that, holding a fine crystal wine glass in her hand, I heard a sound in my ears, as if something had irreparably shattered. I gently set down the silver fork I was holding and met my aunt's unwavering gaze. $500,000. Yes. You travel all over the world for work, don't you? That's why I gave you money instead of some object. I transferred it to your account. With that amount, you could easily buy a top-of-the-line Mercedes-Benz. Before she had even finished speaking, my younger sister, Emma, who was sitting across from me, began coughing violently. The coffee she had been drinking splashed onto her pristine white silk dress, but she didn't even try to wipe it off. She was staring at our aunt in shock. The hand of my mother, Kathy Irving, who was seated beside her, was trembling slightly as well. She took a hurried sip of red wine as if trying to escape, but her eyes darted restlessly, unable to focus on anything. I chose my words carefully, keeping my voice as calm as possible. "Aunt, thank you very much, but that's strange. What was delivered in front of my house was definitely a rusty used bicycle, almost 10 years old." "Used?" My aunt's eyebrows shot up in suspicion. "Yes. A few days ago, my mother called me and said, 'It's a gift from Aunt Sandra. She asked me to send you an old bicycle she used to use so you wouldn't get out of shape.' Right now, what's sitting in the bike parking area of my apartment is that old fitness bike. The chain is off and the basket is bent." Silence spread across the dining table. My aunt was a hard-nosed businesswoman who had built a real estate empire from nothing. I watched calmly as doubt and sharp anger blended together in her eyes. "Kathy, explain this to me." Her voice was low and cold. "A few weeks ago, I definitely deposited $500,000 into the account I share with Tracy. And I told you, let Tracy know and let her choose whatever she likes. Why has my gift been replaced with a bicycle?" My mother's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, as she cast a pleading look toward Emma, seated beside her. But Emma was staring intently at her smartphone, her fingers moving frantically across the screen. It was as if she were desperately trying to erase something of hers from existence right then and there. "Well, Sandra, that's just some kind of mistake. Tracy must be misunderstanding something." My mother's voice cracked, utterly lacking in conviction. I lowered my gaze to my fingertips. I make my living as a cybercrime investigator, tracking down numbers that have vanished into the digital shadows, working for governments and international banks. The specific figure my aunt mentioned, $500,000, my mother's obvious agitation, and my sister's fingers constantly trying to hide her phone. My professional instincts were quietly but powerfully telling me the truth. Beneath this lavish Thanksgiving dinner lay a nauseating betrayal carried out by my own flesh and blood. My consciousness drifted back 10 days earlier. It was on a Monday in November, with a cold winter wind blowing outside. My office, my workplace, was wrapped as usual in a sterile, inorganic silence. I was deeply focused on analyzing a complex international money laundering scheme spread across multiple monitors. That silence was broken by the dull vibration of my smartphone. The name on the screen was my sister's, Emma. "Hey Tracy, about Thanksgiving this year." Her voice coming through the speaker sounded oddly buoyant, unnaturally cheerful. "You said you've got tons of work piled up, right? So, you don't have to push yourself to come back here for Thanksgiving this year. Mom also said this is an important time for Tracy's career, so we should let her rest. Plane tickets are expensive anyway. Use that money for yourself. I took my fingers off the keyboard. It was the first time in my life Emma had ever worried about my job. For 33 years, she had never once spent time or consideration on anyone but herself. I can adjust my schedule. I'll talk to Aunt Sandra directly. No, she's apparently super busy right now. Anyway, that's how it is. We'll handle things here, so you just relax over there. Okay. Love you. The call ended abruptly. For a while, I stared at the darkened screen. Each of her words lingered in my mind like the kind of inconsistent data I deal with at work, leaving behind a quiet, but persistent dissonance. The very next day, a large delivery truck pulled up in front of my apartment building. Miss Tracy Irving. Correct. This delivery is from Miss Kathy Irving. A gift from my mother. Feeling uneasy, I went to receive it. And what was placed in front of me was not a gift box, but a bicycle. No. Calling it a bicycle felt far too generous. It looked like a piece of junk salvaged straight from a landfill. The entire frame was covered in stubborn rust. The handlebars were warped. The chain had completely come off. The front basket was dented in multiple places. And the tires were flat, crushed beyond hope. Attached to the base of the handlebars was a card written in my mother's handwriting. To Tracy, Aunt Sandra has been worried about your health since you sit all day, so she decided to give you a bicycle she used to love. It's a bit old, but it should be enough to get your body moving, don't you think? Don't waste your aunt's kindness. Use it gratefully. I stopped just short of touching the rusted metal. My aunt is an extremely strict woman, but she also values only the very highest quality. Would she really give her niece a bicycle, so decrepit it felt downright dangerous? All for my health. And then there was Emma's almost obsessive insistence that I not come home. A quiet, but inextinguishable flame of suspicion ignited inside me. I immediately rebooked the earliest available flight, and began preparing to return to my parents' house to see with my own eyes what they were trying to hide. On the plane, I checked my sister Emma's Instagram. Her account boasting over 100,000 followers, as an influencer selling a luxury lifestyle, was overflowing with dazzling lies. One photo in particular caught my attention. The background was an upscale residential neighborhood. Front and center sat a pristine white Mercedes-Benz G-Class, so new I could almost smell the leather. Emma was leaning casually against the hood, a champagne flute in hand, wearing a smile as radiant as it was triumphant. The caption read, "The best reward for myself. Hard work never betrays you. #Mercedes-Benz #class #luxury life #gift to myself." After landing at the airport, I hurried toward my childhood home in a rental car. The moment I parked in front of the house, the first thing that leapt into my sight was that white car sitting proudly in front of the garage. I took a deep breath and got out. Before I even opened the front door, I heard laughter from inside. My mother's voice in Emma's light, excited giggles. When I knocked, the laughter stopped abruptly. After a few seconds of silence, I heard the sound of the lock turning. "Oh, Tracy, why are you?" My mother's face, when she opened the door, wasn't colored by surprise so much as pure fear, but she quickly covered it with a strange smile. "I heard from Emma that you were too busy with work to come back. Your father's on a sudden business trip today, too. But well, welcome home." She hugged me. Her sweaters smelled of expensive perfume, yet her arms were faintly trembling, and there was not the slightest warmth of genuine welcome in them. When I stepped into the living room, Emma stood up from the sofa. On her finger sparkled an emerald-cut diamond so large, I'd never seen anything like it before. "So, you came after all. Weren't you supposed to be busy?" Her eyes seemed desperately to be searching for the truth behind my arrival. I pushed myself a bit. I also wanted to thank Aunt Sandra directly for her gift. Emma's face stiffened ever so slightly. Oh, that bicycle. Aunt Sandra really is worried about your health, but she's coming later today, and we have so much to catch up on. So, let's not bring that up. Okay. Just then, a man emerged from the kitchen. Perfectly styled hair. A confident posture. A suit that fits too well. Emma's fiancé, Ryan Fisher. Nice to meet you, Tracy. I've heard all about you from Emma. A cybersecurity expert, right? I'm in the investment world myself, so maybe we'll have a chance to talk business someday. He extended his right hand with a polished smile. And that beautiful Mercedes outside, whose is it? When I asked casually, the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Emma answered as if shot from a spring. Oh, that's Ryan's. His work as an investment consultant is going incredibly well right now. He bought the latest model brand new as an investment in himself. Isn't it amazing? Well, actually, Emma deserves half the credit. She's been doing great with her influencer sponsorships, and as an engagement gift she put down a pretty substantial down payment. Honestly, it's a car far too good for me. Ryan looked slightly bashful, but clearly proud of her. I see. That really is wonderful to be able to exchange such incredible gifts with each other. What an ideal relationship, I said, never letting my smile fade. My mother pretended to busy herself with dinner preparations, carefully avoiding eye contact with me. On the sideboard, I noticed a wedding brochure for Emma's upcoming ceremony tossed there carelessly. A top-tier luxury hotel in New York, 300 guests, a custom-made wedding dress. In my mind, every single detail converted neatly into one number. $500,000. Tracy, don't just stand there. Come on. Your aunt will be here any minute now. Why don't you get changed? That plain outfit of yours will ruin Thanksgiving. My mother said this coldly, brushing imaginary raindrops off my clothes. I went upstairs to the guest room and set down my bag. The face staring back at me in the mirror was surprisingly calm. From downstairs came cheerful laughter once again, followed by the pop of an expensive champagne cork, the $500,000. The rusted bicycle was delivered to my door, and the pristine white Mercedes sitting proudly in the garage. Every piece of the puzzle had already clicked perfectly into place in my mind. When dinner was ready, the doorbell rang. Aunt Sandra stood at the entrance. She wore a deep navy silk dress and a strand of large pearls around her neck. She looked more dignified than anyone else in the room. Tracy, I'm so glad you came home. It makes me truly happy to see your face. She hugged me gently yet with unmistakable strength. For just a moment, something icy deep in my chest nearly melted at the warmth of her arms. She wasn't involved in this hypocrisy-filled scheme. That certainty only hardened my resolve. My aunt took a seat at the head of the table with my mother Kathy on one side and Ryan, Emma's fiancé, on the other. Across from me sat Emma, fiddling with the latest iPhone, while ostentatiously flashing the diamond on her engagement ring. Dinner proceeded smoothly on the surface. Emma rattled on about her rapidly growing follower count, and her extravagant wedding plans for next year. Ryan spoke modestly about his business ventures. My mother watched the two of them with dazzled, almost proud eyes, occasionally turning to me to offer barbed advice like, "You should polish yourself a bit more, too, Tracy." And then, just as my aunt picked up a sharp knife to carve the turkey, I decided it was time to drop the bomb I had prepared. By the way, Aunt Sandra, please allow me to thank you properly. My voice was calmer and clearer than I had expected. Thank you so much for the bicycle. I'll be sure to take good care of it. In that instant, the knife struck the plate with a sharp clang that echoed through the room. My aunt froze mid-motion and slowly lifted her head. Her eyes wavered with deep confusion and an unnamed sense of dread. A bicycle. Tracy, what are you talking about? Her voice was low, heavy with bewilderment. What I gave you was $500,000. How does that turn into a bicycle? The moment those words fell, Emma, sitting across from me, violently spit out the coffee she had been drinking. What? What are you? Her face flushed red as she choked, her eyes wide with terror. Beside her, my mother dropped her fork. It clattered uselessly against the fine porcelain. I tilted my head deliberately and looked at my aunt. But Aunt Sandra, what arrived at my apartment was an old rust-covered used fitness bike. One you were said to have used yourself. Mom handed it to me saying, "It's a gift from your aunt. Worried about your health." What did you say? I could see the color draining rapidly from my aunt's face. She slowly placed the knife down on the table, her gaze piercing straight through my trembling mother. Kathy, why has my gift been swapped for something like that? Well, Sandra, it's just some kind of mix-up. You know, today is Thanksgiving. Let's not get caught up in little details. Little details. My aunt's voice sliced through the room like a blade of ice. $500,000 disappearing, and my niece receiving a piece of junk instead. That is a little detail to you. At that moment, Ryan, who had remained silent, finally spoke. Now, Aunt Sandra, this must be some kind of clerical error. I'll contact the bank tomorrow. For now, let's just enjoy this wonderful meal. No, Ryan, that won't be necessary. I reached into my bag, took out a thick file of documents, and placed it squarely on the table. Whether it was a mistake or not, we can confirm that right here, right now. Aunt Sandra, to be honest, over the past few days, there was something I simply couldn't shake. So, I did a bit of my own investigation. I stood up and opened my tablet. I watched with cold satisfaction, as my mother's and Emma's faces drained of color in the glow of the screen. This was where my real work as a professional began. Tracy, what is all this? Aunt Sandra stared sharply at the display. Aunt Sandra, this is where your $500,000 went. I tapped the screen. Bank transaction records appeared. November 14, 2025. You did in fact deposit $500,000 into my account. But just 20 hours later, at 10 a.m. on November 15, nearly the entire amount, $499,800, was wired to an external account. And the recipient's name is sitting right there at this table. Emma Irving. What? Ryan, seated next to her, looked at Emma in shock. Emma, what is this supposed to mean? That Mercedes and the wedding funds. You told me those were proof of your success as an influencer. You said you bought everything with legitimate earnings.